Welcome everybody to the Halifax to Marblehead to Halifax race preview. My name is McGlashan. I'm with North Sales as a sale expert in Salem, Massachusetts. I have about 25 plus years of professional racing, both inshore and offshore as well. And I will be having a chat to you about sale prep and sale setup. And then you'll meet Matt Allen, who is our service manager, who will go over servicing sales and repairing sales underway, and both before and after an event like this. Anyone who has questions along the way, please just put them into the chat box, and Jill will let us know those questions and we will answer them as best we can. You will have our email addresses, so if there is more in-depth questions or questions you think of later, please don't hesitate to send out an email privately to us with any questions, and we're happy to help you out with that. Moving forward on this, we've got there's a great photo of Matt and I, so you know what we look like, and there's our email addresses, and you will be able to get to this recording later, or if you want to get those now, I'll leave it on there for another 30 seconds for you. Okay, so moving on here. So again, this is sort of what the outline of what we want to talk about tonight, and again, we can answer questions during this or later on with emails in the next week if you think of things, or tomorrow. That is more than fine for both Matt and I to do that. I know Matt's going to be busy tomorrow morning for most of the day putting some sails on a big boat, but he will get back to you at some point for sure. So sale preparation and inventory. When you're doing a race like the Halifax race or any offshore race, obviously sale preparation is one of the most important things that you can do for the event, being that that's obviously what's going to get you there. The faster, the better. So there's a few things with sale preparation. One of them would be obviously going through your inventory, getting it checked over, making sure everything's in good shape, and then picking what you're going to use for an inventory. So with your inventory, there's sort of break it up into two different factors. One factor is your storm sails and the configuration of those, because these are essential sails. So like, for example, Halifax Race is raced under Category 2 rating, which anyone can go online and Google and find out exactly what sails you need, but you do need either a storm trysail or a mainsail that can reef down to 50%, and you need a storm jib, and then you also need a heavy weather jib. The storm sails are obviously traditionally they're Dacron, and they've got to be a bright orange color and be able to be sheeted with expecting that you might have a broken boom or so forth. So, the storm sails are obviously sails that you must have. And there's no real way around not having those. Like I said, unless you have a mainsail that has a very, very high reef, but that is quite a big reef, and it does add a lot of weight to a sail aloft. So most people will just use their regular main and have a storm trysail and a storm jib. And if you pack them up and put them into the big Ziploc bags, then you can keep them dry, because obviously they're Dacron and they will soak up water. So if you get them packed up, and I've vacuum bagged them before to get them nice and small, and then you can tuck them away out of the way quite easily. So those are your sails that you have to have, and then you get onto your performance enhancing sails, and these are where you have to start to make some decisions. So one of the decisions that we've started to do is, instead of doing traditionally carrying 3 head sails, a 1, a 2, and a 3, we're doing something that's more of a 1.5, which is a sail that has a bigger range, but it's stronger. And with our new Helix luff systems, we can get away with this and end up with a lot bigger range of use for the sail. So now you're having something that's essentially you can use it down to 5 knots and up to 14 knots. And that's all based on luff tension and adjusting luff tension. This is with our 3DI products. And it definitely is something that's very handy. And in the middle bottom photo, that is a J1.5 on a boat, and we've used that. I just used that over in the UK, and we used it in 5 knots and we used it in 20 knots, and the sail is still in great shape. And we actually ended up breaking something on the boat instead of the sail because the part wasn't strong enough. So you can definitely end up with a very good wide range. The other two factors that have changed over the years that have become a big player is the larger photo there is a one of the new Code Zeros, which rates as a spinnaker, but it's a very flat sail, and you can see how the clue is very low on it. So this sail becomes a very good light air upwind sail. You can be sailing it up to 70 degrees apparent wind angle in sort of 5-6 knots. They just finished the Marion Bermuda race, and one of the boats that was in it, I believe, had one and took about 30 miles out of one of the other boats in the last couple of days because they were basically going twice as fast because the other boat had a jib and not a Code Zero that you could go upwind with. And that made a big difference. The other thing too, with the next photo with the one orange sail and the one black sail, that is a sail that actually rates as a storm jib, the orange sail, and then that's just a regular headsail that's up the regular groove. And if you reaching, you could have, in fact, the Code Zero up out on a sprit, and then the jib, and then a staysail inside it. If you have a sprit, if you don't have a sprit, you should still be able to end up with a minimum Code Zero, and then some sort of staysail if you have the ability to fly a staysail inside of it. And this has been one of the biggest developments over the last few years is ending up trying to triple head, which just creates more flow over the sails, which generates more boat speed. So that's been a really big factor in the last few years. And then obviously, your main sails is going to be the sail that's always up. So you want to make sure that it's in good shape, and go through and refit in 5 knots so that you know how everything works, and make sure all the leads work. And if you haven't reefed it in 2 years, go and do it again with the crew. Because if you need to get it reefed, you need to make sure you can get it done and get it done in a timely fashion and without anybody getting hurt. So that's sort of a general overview of it. So literally, I'm going to be doing the Halifax race, and the boat that I'm doing it on, the inventory is a little bit older, but we have a Code Zero that is a fractional Code Zero that we will probably take. And that is a good sail for tight air reaching. It won't be exactly as good as the newer upwind ones, but it'll be something we can still carry at a pretty fine angle, and we can still get another sail out behind it as well. As opposed to a jib top with something where you've got it that a jib top's going up the headstay, and then you aren't getting as much separation to try and get all your sails up in the air at the same time. So that's one of the big things. And then obviously, as you start doing this and have more and more sails up, you need to make sure you've got enough jib sheets and spinnaker sheets and tweakers and all that good stuff to be able to set things up, because you will have to do some things on the fly. Even on the boats that we do this all the time, we have little handy billies and little purchase systems to help get things up and running and changing it, because every time you use it, it's a slightly different sea state, slightly different twist in the wind, slightly different amount of wind, and so all of these factors.
Bring chairs up so they can hear well.
Sorry, what was that?
That's all right, Alan. I muted her. I don't think Julie realized that she was on speaker.
Oh, okay, sorry. Sorry. So yeah, just making sure you've got enough lines to be able to do all of this. You know, for example, the photo there with the orange sail in it, we have 3 jib sheets on the black sail, and we have a little purchase system on the other sail, and then sometimes you'll have another one that'll be actually in hauling that even further inboard. So that's what's really important with these races and with doing all these reaches, and just going out and spending a day reaching in all sorts of different directions and different angles, and see how it feels, and just figure it out. It's, you kind of got to do it on the fly. But obviously it's too late now, but for your next offshore race, just think about doing some of the helix sails, because for sure it gives you a lot bigger range with your sails. So you end up carrying a lot less sails, which is more room, less weight on the boat, and the sail might cost a little bit more, but it's still certainly cheaper than 2 sails. So that would be my recommendation for enhancing performance. Has anyone got any questions or anything yet on what we've talked about? Jill, no one's, we're all good?
Yeah, I don't see anybody in the chat.
No?
No.
Okay. So I think we've gone through, reefing is obviously very, very important. To have the ability to do that, having your structured luff sails so you can carry less sails, and being able to carry multiple sails at once is obviously all very important things to have in your quiver. And the other thing too, with any of these sails that are furling, I always recommend going on the bigger side on the furling units, because when the time comes that you actually need to use the furler, if you're getting over range and it's getting a little bit overpowered, that's when the furling units really want to work, right? So if you have one that's on the low side of the max loads that the sails can take, I always personally go with a bigger one. It's a little bit more cost, but the insurance of knowing it's going to work, I think, is way outweighs the extra cost. Is my feeling, because the cost of it not being able to furl and you damaging the sail or the rig or somebody, it just doesn't seem worth it to me. So all the furling sails I do, I always recommend to go higher than necessary. So that's really a sort of a broad overview for you of how we're going to attack the race. And obviously, we'll look at the weather before it, but these kind of races, I mean, you can get some calls that are going to come through. You're not going to be able to dodge everything. So I think that's why with an inventory that isn't quite as brand new and as fresh and doesn't have the helix luff head seals, you've got to end up covering your range a little bit more. But yeah, so that's kind of my feelings with the performance side of the sails. It's really sort of a Matt one, and Matt will be able to answer it better, but I would recommend taking at least one spare batten in case you break a batten in something. If you are, just take the longest batten that you need for anything, and then you can always cut it down. But I'm sure Matt's got more on that. Okay, Matt, looks like this is on you now.
Thank you, Alan. My name is Matt Allen, and I've been doing sailmaking for about 15 years now, and just hoping to give you a thorough but quick overview of everything you might need to do an onboard repair, and go over some repairs very quickly with you. At this point, you guys should probably be doing a final check, just checking for any wear or tear, some chafe. UV damage is probably the leading cause of problems, Alan. That was great. If you can go back to that
Sorry, Matt.
clue on the mainsail, that was a prime example of, I would have to guess, somebody having their sail cover be 2 or 3 inches too short, and the corner webbing kind of rotted out, and the ring just pulled right through the webbings.
Did you want to go back over this, Matt, or not?
Let's yep. we can I'm going to go through this list pretty quickly. You know, here is a fairly good list of what you might want to do. I'm going to go over this on the table here in front of me and show you what everything really is, just because there are some things that are a little bit different than you might not have seen. So if we have the clue side of the clue, Alan, if you could. This was actually a very ingenuitive repair of something that happened out there. As you can kind of tell, the clue webbings gave way. My guess is that the sail got a little bit too much sun in that area. And what I like about it is that they stayed right in all the spectral webbing that is sewn into the clue. They drilled some holes pretty quickly. They used some 12-strand spectra to lace it and get it back all together. And they're, from what I understand, they're back underway fairly quickly. I think within an hour from the time it actually happened. And then if you want to show the spinnaker repair, you know, I don't want to tell you what not to do, but this is an example of something that didn't go too well, is that a repair went. It was all just put a little bit too tight. So hopefully I'll give you a chance to see how to get a spinnaker repair done without overloading your the cloth in the area surrounding it. So Alan, I think I can start presenting if you wanted to stop sharing.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it, Matt, because my screen changed around on me. Sorry.
Okay. I'm gonna take a minute to put the camera down to my table anyways.
Okay, got you here, Matt.
All right, let me just pin myself so it doesn't go back and forth. Okay, so we have a good array of materials here for getting our sail repairs done. Put my list. We have just some basic needles. Sailmaker's needles are a little larger than anything that you'll find at the regular store. We have a spool of thread. They are available in smaller rolls. I took an opportunity to just shave some off and put it on a piece of cardboard. You could put it on a piece of plastic. That might be an easier way for you to get everything that you need. The pair of pliers can come in very handy, pulling the needle through. There's a pair of sailmaker pliers. Any pair of pliers would do to pull the needle through the other side once you've pushed it in. A pair of scissors. I would recommend something smaller, but opposable blades would be nice. These are seam rippers, which are very common, available. Getting rid of some, you know, stitching or leech tape or something that's in your way from a sticking down a repair. This can pull up some stitching for you. I was able to find a sewing palm. I have not used one in about 12 to 15 years. I always use the pliers to pull it through. If I do find that it gets to the need to actually use the sewing palm, you're pushing so hard on the back of the needle that a lot of times you break the back of the needle in half. So pulling it is a little bit less stressful on the needle itself. After that, we get into some of our materials. You guys are probably used to sticky Dacron, which is the backbone of almost any sail repair. It's just adhesive backed. It's very thin Dacron. Can't get it going. Okay, and it just sticks right down. It's ready to go in a moment's notice. It's available on rolls. Available at your loft more often in full sheets. This can come 54 inches wide and just be a huge area. In many colors. Orange is a good color to have. It comes up a little different on my computer, but can mark where you want to do a repair for later on. After that, you want to have some base cloths for your repairs. I have 2 pieces of old sailcloth. An old sail can actually come in handy for having some sailcloth available to you if you have a sail that is laying around. This is actually some Dacron. I just chose red. Try to increase our visibility for the night. So there's some laminates you can have. Oh, I would have some sheets of Dacron. Dacron is also available on a roll. It doesn't have any adhesive on it at this time though. And spinnaker cloth. Spinnaker cloth, you should have probably a yard of it on your boat. And that all these base cloths are going to need to get paired with some seam stick. So this is a double-sided stick tape that once you adhere it on, it will allow you to peel the other side off, and now you're sticking the cloth onto your sail directly. You'll notice I made up some spinnaker strips that are fully backed with sticky cloth. I made sticky dots for doing pinholes on your spinnaker. Final pieces of your kit should be some webbing. This is just polyester webbing. It's 1-inch tubular webbing. I would also have some Spectra 12-strand that you probably have in your kit and inventory as well. I've kind of stayed away from some of the more exotic materials like Kevlar aramid patches. For what you guys are doing on the boat, that might be a little bit much and a little bit expensive. And between storing and everything else and the repair you'll be able to effect, it's just going to be too expensive to keep around and store it. You know, the sticking and the sewing and the time that you guys are going to have, you're just not going to be able to do an effective repair. I'd recommend sticking with just simple sticky back Dacron and layering it up as you need to. So I'd like to take a second to set up a simple repair. I've taken the time to tear up a spinnaker, and we have unfortunately an L-shaped tear, and I was hoping to just be able to help you guys get it a little bit flat and stick a nice effective repair. One thing you may or may not have on the boat is pins, but I would recommend several people helping out in this situation and holding the sail flat. And take a couple pieces of sticky Dacron. And we're just going to arrange this square a little better. I'm going to pull this nice and tight. You want the sailcloth to be pulled tight as you're dropping any adhesive on. And what we're going to do is we're going to look to close the spinnaker up, and we're going to line up any squares that you can and allow the spinnaker to come together. And just do a couple of simple things that'll allow you to get a longer strip through. I'm going to close that up. You can kind of see that there's some distortion here. I've worked as hard as I could to get the spinnaker to stretch and bend. Unfortunately, you seem to want to tear more than anything. We're just going to keep closing this up best we can. Okay, and so that is just a primitive closing up of the spinnaker. We're going to take a length of sticky. And this is where you want to make sure that everyone is pulling this as tight as they could without distorting the sail. And the trick to this is we have our strip, and we are going to drop this on with no tension. It is just going to drop on. And hopefully in place. Let me do one more hand real quick right here. Get rid of some of that distortion. Okay, if it's giving you a little bit of trouble, you could actually relieve some of the pulling and tight cloth. Get rid of some of that. And we're going to drop this on as loose as possible. Okay. And these strips are pressure sensitive adhesive. So once you have it on fairly loose, we're going to work it in and press it down and stick it down and give it some good pressure in order to seal it onto the sails. At this point, you would want to just flip it over and tape the other side, again, dropping this cloth on as loose as possible while keeping the spinnaker tight. See how we did? Not too bad. There's a little distortion there. I didn't do the greatest job getting all the way down to the bottom of the repair. Still a hole there. But altogether came through pretty flat.
Hey, Matt, can you just
Yep.
grab the other one again and just flip it over the other side and just let them see how it looks on the other side without the sticky on it now?
Yep. So we've got apparently a piece of tape in there somewhere, but this is exposed sticky right here. So we're going to need to tape over that side in order to get it through. But I think it came out pretty smooth. Okay. Our second quick onboard repair, we took our Genoa and we have probably hooked some sort of spreader patch or spreader tip, excuse me. And we're going to put a patch down where the spreaders are. Maybe it was a steaming light or a radar. Again, if there's anything that's pulled extra tight, we could give it a little cut, get rid of any distortion that's within the sail. Just loosen that cloth up. And so we have our piece of Dacron here. This is actually just red Dacron. And I took the time to get all of our seam stick laid out on this with 1-inch strips in an approximate size. So we're going to cut this down to fit. We're going to start peeling. We're going to work from the middle out. And then again, I'm gonna have to go with some pins. Hopefully you guys have a couple people that are willing to hold the sail flat for you. Again, probably a 3-person repair at this point. Just for this moment, getting the cloth dropped down. Again, we're gonna start from the drop it on in the middle for the hole. Outwards. Tape going. Again, this is pressure sensitive, so it wants to get pushed down. I would recommend going down. You can add layers in order to transition down to a thinner layer. Keep it nice and smooth, give you a little more cloth to work through. This is our bigger sheet of sticky that's going to go down right here. From the middle out. Little lift and stick that down. You can still see the edges of the repair with the buildup. You might not be able to see that through the camera. I do apologize. When we flip this, we have the gash is still on this side. So I have another piece of laminated material. This is actually just carbon 3DI. At that side. You'll notice this piece was a little bit smaller than the other one. This actually can be good for the sail. So it steps down and transitions the the load on the sail. And for this, I wanted to show that we can also use, our sticky Dacron. If you're worried about creating some tension across the sail, you can put it this direction, but we can seal this repair up on the edges. Okay, and I would cover that entire repair all the way through. I'm just gonna, in the interest of time, I'm gonna flip this back over. Okay. So we've used some seam stick in order to get this repair done. I would not recommend using any 5200 or Hysol. Most of those take 24 to 72 hours to cure, which is why I use the seam stick. And what that would do is probably mean that you're gonna go ahead and really do some hand stitching in order to keep this repair down. And I don't want to get too far into this, but I've taken a needle and I've led thread through it and I've tied a knot in the back end. My recommendation will be to stitch the sail up. I'll get a few stitches done. So we have our needle going in. I could take the time to punch a few holes. Make the needle passing a little quicker. Okay, and so we have a nice loop with a knot in the end. I'm actually going to start in the second hole through. I'm going to flip the cloth over. I'm going to come through from the other side. Pull this tight, and you can see that there's a loop left right here. We're going to go through that loop. Okay, pull that loop tight, and now we're off and going the length of our repair. Again, we're going to do just a simple couple stitches. Okay, and continue that all the way down the sail until you're ready to come back. We're going to turn around right here. That one. Coming back up. I'm going to turn around and come back here, go through this hole on the way back. Flip it on the other side. We have one stitch to go. We come back and we're at where we started. We're just going to tuck it under one of the first stitches, tie an overhand knot. And you are done. Okay. So that would be good to do, probably the length of the stitch. You can mark it out with dots. You can pre-punch it with an awl. And that way the needle will just fly right through the holes that are pre-punched. Our last repair, we have a corner of a sail, and I've took the opportunity to stick a piece of orange down. If this is a sail that had a bit more age to it, or if you needed some extra layers, you could always build it up with a bunch of layers of sticky Dacron. In this case, I used some of the orange, and magically, one of the clue webbings has appeared on the sail already. I think if we could go back to back with the webbing to try to reinforce the webbings through, but we're going to take some of our webbing. In this case, I chose to use some black just for visibility, but this is our tubular polyester. Would do just great for this repair. I also took some seam stick and stuck it on the back side. And so we're going to splays this through, and again, we're going to try to go for back to back. If this were the leech of the sail, I would point this probably right at the head of the sail. You guys would have marks on the stitch holes existing on the sail as well. If you can't see through the sail, I'm going to use either an awl or a pin to mark the edge of the webbing so that you're sure to wind up back to back. Up the leech, we can splay one down the foot. Generally trying to balance it perpendicular to the edge of the ring and make sure all the tension on all the webbings are even with one another. We find the back to back again. At this point, you would want to do a hand seize. Again, I'd recommend coming around and maybe doing an arc a little bit in from the edge of the sail, get into some of the meat of the sail, and then stitching up the lengths of the webbing. This is where the sails can be a little bit thicker and give you a little more trouble on being able to get the needle to push through. So this is where I would use an awl. If you have the ability to hammer the awl through a block of wood or anything else, a hammer and a block would get you through these holes a little quicker. You could also just take it and really drive it through with your hand prior to the needle coming through. Or you could give it a good pound with a mallet. You can have them all preset. Okay. And we would come in with our needle and thread again. I took the opportunity this time to double up on the threads. So I have 4 strands running just for a little more durability. On a bigger boat, you could double up on the thread. And one more time, starting at the second hole in, going back to the furthest one over. Okay. Pull that tight, and you can continue this all the way across the corner of the sail. Until you're ready to come back. Flip. Until we line up where we started. At this point, I would just give it, again, a tuck underneath your original loop into an overhand knot. Pull tight and snip, and you're out. So that is a pretty primitive, quick hand seize. Get a clue ring back on the corner of your sail. And so that's all I have for you for some quick repairs. Be back up.
Hey, Matt. We
Yes.
Hey, we got a question earlier from somebody about chafing, and their question was, once it starts to happen, like, how do you stop it from progressing further? Any
Yeah, you're gonna need to
suggestions?
get some chafe patch material. This is where you could want to get service done. But picking the right material for your sail would be an ideal thing to do. This is some aramid chafe patch material, and it's just basically sticky that would go on your sail. You want to make sure the sail is clean, dry, and ready to take this. It comes in black for the aramid. There's a white for the Spectra sails. Regular sticky Dacron could help, but I would recommend scaling up to something like an aramid or a Spectra in order to have a sputter patch or radar patch installed. So is there any other questions or?
Yeah, does
There's
anyone
nothing-
else have any questions or want to type it in the chat or
No, I don't see anything in
you
chat.
can or email also
Yeah.
Matt or Alan as well.
So, no, if there aren't any questions, I think I'll leave it there. Your pre-sale care, pre-race sale care is obviously very important. I would get everything one last check for anything that's been sitting, that's been moist or sitting in the sun are the two biggest ones of things that lead to failure without you guys kind of checking in on it. The chafe and other things, I think it gets seen a little bit more often, but UV damage is the number one culprit for service repairs.
Matt, we have a question.
Uh-huh.
Do you sell repair kits?
I do and I don't. I don't have them prefabricated up. Much like getting a new sail, it is kind of a custom thing in my opinion, where I'm going to ask if you have black sails or white sails. Are we looking for vinegar cloth? Each time a sail kit repair kit comes up, it just seems to be like not the perfect items. And so if you're willing to give me a call, I can get you set up with some of the things you might need. And most boats have half their kit together and only want to just complete it out. So I don't essentially have a prefabricated kit made up.
Hey Matt, do you want to just
Yeah.
give them the office number so people can write it down, or your line?
Okay. Yeah, feel free to give a call. Our loft number is 978-745-1400. I can see the question about how the lead time for a kit. Most of this stuff is in stock. I can order some things in. It takes a couple days to get some materials in. Most of the stuff would be laying around the loft that I could piece together. For instance, ordering seam rippers and awls, they come in larger packs to me, but you guys are only going to need one or two. So most of everything is here at the loft.
Anyone have any
So-
more questions on
yeah.
anything we've talked about tonight? All right, well, I guess that
Yes.
that wraps it up, and good luck to everyone who's doing the race. I will be out there on the start line and at the finish line as well. Hopefully, I'm doing the race myself, so hopefully I'll get to meet you all at the yacht club up in Halifax.
Okay. Thank you. And yeah, I'm here at the loft. Again, if you needed the number, 978-745-1400. So glad to see you guys.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting.